Greetings, everybody out there in YouTube land, hockey fanatics. It's your buddy Choppadong. I am going to come at you with the super quick hockey breakdown for Saturday. We're not going to talk a lot of data. We're not going to dive into depth today. We're just going to give you the goods and get out of here and hope that you want to become a VIP at DFSArmy.com. Really, your one-stop shopping for everything daily fantasy sports, even sports betting. We've got coverage over there as well. Wanted to show you that as well as just the cheat sheets for every single sport, access to the experts that are talking the sport that you want to play every single day, and the track record that's winning anywhere between 3, 4, 5, 6 figures, even $1 million. We had a $1 million winner in Week 3 NFL. So come on in, use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, or DFS Army, either one works, for a 20% discount to our VIP services. And really and truly just turn your game around. It's that simple. But in the meantime, we're going to dive in today to my favorite little sheet here that I'm putting together as the year goes on. It shows our game scores, which games we should be targeting, the top 5 game scores, the top 5 implied team totals over 3.4, and then the stacks that we're going to run. I didn't put any value plays in there today. I don't have the time to really dig into our NHL research station over at dfsarmy.com, but it is a fully customizable spreadsheet, completely loaded with all the statistics that you need, from shots on goal and block shots to shooting percentage to time on ice to last 5 game, last 10 games, season long fantasy point average per site that you play, salary filters, the whole bit. Really and truly can break down, help you really dive deep if you want to, and break down a slate from top to bottom. But today I'm just glossing over the easy stuff for the main slate tonight, starting with Boston and Toronto. Boston with a 68 matchup score is intriguing. It's not the tops on the slate, which is more intriguing, and a lot of people are going to go there. I've done some research. I'm telling my VIPs kind of the stack formations that are most common to get into the top 10th of 1% when it comes to GPPs, and we're going to start forming our stacks accordingly, and we're going to start attacking games with ownership, and Boston carries high ownership. Doesn't necessarily mean you want to run away from Boston, but it does mean that you need to take that into consideration on certain slates. Today may or may not be one of those. Our VIPs will know. Toronto probably won't be used much other than one-offs. You can always use Tavares. You can always use Matthews. You can always use some of those guys as one-offs in tournaments, but I don't know if this is necessarily the game environment that they're going to go bonkers in. If so, you will have lower ownership on them. Colorado and Tampa Bay, sneaky shootout potential here when two teams line up in the mid-60s. Oftentimes it shows me decent offenses and teams not elite defenses, and that game can lead to shootouts. Colorado's on a back-to-back, though, so I'd be a little bit careful when it really comes down to it. Watch Nathan MacKinnon. He played last night. We'll see how he runs out today, and we'll adjust accordingly. Tampa Bay is one of our favorite stacks tonight because they do carry a very high implied team total. I believe highest on the slate at 3.8 right now. Dallas and Philadelphia, largely ignorable, and I saw guys running Dallas stacks in cash the other day. I mean putrid. Tyler Seguin isn't working. John Klingberg isn't working. A lot of these other guys are just not producing right now, and if you're dumb enough to run these guys out there in cash games when they're playing tougher defensive matchups, then I can't help you. That's not what I'm about. I'm going to put my money in cash games where the odds are most likely to happen, and that's in games, with high implied team totals and high game totals, high game scores. Vegas and Pittsburgh probably won't be as much on Vegas right now as I will be on the Pittsburgh side of this game. Won't be on New York and Columbus really at all. There are one-offs always in these types of games. New York's prices are suppressed right now, and there are a few guys sitting in there, sneaky little guys like a Brock Nelson, that are cash viable and underpriced. Not exactly the best environment for them to do a lot of scoring though tonight, so you're really kind of more likely to test your floor than your ceiling tonight, and that's going to make things maybe a little bit more gambly, if that's a word, for you. In cash games, that's not what you do. Okay, you take the bona fide underpriced guys that are also in smash spots to test their ceilings, not just test their floors and hope they get there. Ottawa is not in a good position tonight. Arizona's playing outstanding defense. Even the last 5 games, they're only averaging 2 goals against per game. That's not a conducive environment for Ottawa, who's scoring under 3 goals a game right now. Arizona, however, is in a pretty good spot, and believe it or not, they've got one of the higher implied team totals on the slate. I would focus on them as well. Florida and Nashville, there's your shootout warning. Over 75 for both teams. Tells me both teams are scoring and neither team's playing defense. A lot of potential for a shootout there tonight. Calgary at 66 is okay. They'll probably carry a good bit of ownership. People won't realize that the LA Kings are giving up goals, but Calgary's not scoring a lot. They have maybe here a little bit lately. They're ticking up a little bit. I don't know if that's the gamble I want to make in cash. I would save them for GPPs only, other than maybe somebody who might be a producer inside that offense, like a Lindholm or somebody like that, that is producing. The rest of them are really high priced for, I'd rather be in Boston's environment. I might rather be in Tampa Bay's environment and get a potential shootout. Pittsburgh's environment with some of the value defensemen there. Arizona will be cheap, and they're in a good spot tonight. Nashville's environment. These are the other. I can choose any of these spots. They're a little bit more safe than the Calgary spot. Buffalo and San Jose, I want to call this one a sneaky shootout because of the low 60s rating getting towards the mid 60s, and it's definitely two teams that are matched up a little bit. And San Jose's upticked quite a bit recently. They're scoring 3.8 goals a game over the last 5 games. They're allowing 3.0. Buffalo's allowing 2.4, but they've been out west for a long, long time. And they're only scoring 3.1 themselves. But it's just an interesting environment that we know a lot of times where the offense is concentrated in Buffalo in those top 2 lines, especially that top line in the power play unit. And San Jose kicking in with a couple of lines of scoring really make things interesting if Buffalo can keep up tonight. I would maybe consider San Jose in cash, depending on their prices when we look a little bit deeper into those, which we're not going to do on this video. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round out telling you top 5 game scores. Nashville, Florida, Pittsburgh, Boston, Arizona. Implied team total over 3.4, as you'll hear me say all year long. There's a historical inflection point at 3.4. When Vegas gives your implied team total over a 3.4, that team typically does do some scoring, and they're in good fantasy position to bring you fantasy points. And when that happens, these are cash consideration type of games. Tampa Bay, Nashville, San Jose, Arizona, and Vegas. Now, this list is slightly different than this list. It's always going to be that way, but it does line up in Nashville and in Arizona, right? Who's going to say Boston's a bad team? Who's going to say Pittsburgh's a bad team? Who's going to say that San Jose going up against Buffalo's in a bad spot? Vegas as well. Nobody. These are all obvious choices. And in hockey, ownership is really, really, really spread out. And on these large slates, don't even worry about it. GPPs aside, don't even worry about it. You don't need that super low owned 3% guy. It'll help if you land on him naturally, but don't go seeking him out. Don't forego a Boston because you're afraid they're going to be quote unquote chalky on a 9-game slate like tonight. There's not really going to be overwhelming chalk. Boston stacks are not going to be 30, 40, 50% owned. You'll be lucky if a couple of those guys are 20 to 25% owned. And if these guys are 20 to 25% owned and you run it back with, say, Arizona or even Nashville, you're splitting up because everybody else running a Boston stack is chopping this up among, maybe they're running 3 guys from a secondary stack. Maybe they're only running 2 guys from a secondary stack. Maybe they're only running one-offs from there on out. It doesn't really matter because everything gets unique after that point. Yeah, your core stack might be chalky, but the rest of it won't be too bad. And that's still low enough ownership, low enough, more, increased odds of having a unique lineup strong enough that you can still win your GPPs. I'm seeing it all the time when I backtest these things. Hockey's a funny little sport. You just don't need to chase ownership like you would think you do. That said, who are the quality stacks? Nashville and Arizona are who I would consider for cash games. I mean, these others are cash viable. These are the 2 I'd probably focus on if it was me. And down here will be secondaries that I'll try to fill in with. Now, later on down the line, maybe a podcast comes out, somebody's really on Boston, that tips your scales towards where you say, okay, I'm going to include Boston in some cash stacks. Fine, do it. I'm just telling you how I'm looking at things right now at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday when a slate doesn't kick off for another 6 hours or 8 hours. I'd be looking at Nashville's top line, their top 2 lines, actually their top 3 lines. Why do I say that? If I go into a daily face-off and go to Nashville, I'll show you quickly how this works. I click onto the stats page. This is just a quick view of diving in if you don't have a lot of time to spend. Look, top line's producing 4 goals. They're shooting, 25 shots. A couple of them are on the power play producing points, right? John Croc, Johansson, you can't argue that that's pretty darn cheap. You see what I'm saying? So this is very, very viable given the smash spot that they're in. The second line is producing in a couple of spots. The third line is producing in a couple of spots, okay? So these are things that I can kind of consider as I go. That makes me want to look at this for Roman Josi, 20 shots on goal and 7 blocks in the last 5 games with 5 points and 3 on the power play. Pretty strong to include Josi in some of your stacking ability tonight. Looking at the power play, now I'm getting a little bit more consolidated. Everybody's got a couple of goals. Shot volume is decent. Everybody's getting some points on the power play except for poor old Michael Granlund here, who's been left out a little bit. The power play two is not producing quite as much. I could run a Bonino Turris, value stack if I really, really wanted to, but I would stick right in here with this, and most importantly, I would stick with a couple of the producers on these lines. I would make sure that anyone in the top line is probably in play, but I would probably stick to Duchesne and Granlund over here. I'd probably skip Carr. I'd probably stick Decisions and Bonino here and skip Smith and run little mini stacks or whatever. That's how I'm breaking up what I'm trying to do because I'm trying to stick with the guys that are currently producing. Show you another one here when we get down to it. Actually, it was I believe it was Boston. We'll come back to that in a second. Arizona 2. The top line's not producing right now. The power play is producing. Both of them are. So run either power play if you want. But Arizona 2 and the power plays. I would run these with Josie and Ellis as the defenseman up here. Ekman, Larson, Chychrun, and Osterley down here. Of course, Yandel, Ekblad, and Uyghur. Uyghur's a decent little value play right now. Florida 1, Florida power play 1 and 2 are producing. San Jose 1 and San Jose are producing. The power play really isn't, and I'd run them with Burns because Carlson's not doing much right now, and Vlasic is just a defensive, kind of a moderate floor guy with not a lot of upside. Boston 1. All of your offense is concentrated here in Boston on Boston 1. All of it. I would maybe consider running Krug with them a little bit. But the top three, the wingers, the top three center and two wings, it's 13 goals, 45 shots, 15 power play points in their last 5 games. And here's how we're going to find it, just to show you. It's Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak if you don't already know that. 3 goals, 2 goals, 8 goals. Yes, this is out of the world in stratosphere. 22 shots is way high as well. 5 assists. This is crazy production. It's not going to sustain itself. Will it stop tonight? I don't know. Will it continue one more night? I don't know. But right now, the line as a whole, and it's just typical of Boston anyway, is doing most of the production on the team. We're waiting for the value line of these second lines to come through and start putting in a little bit of production. But for right now, just pay the price. If you want to run them, pay the price. Because you're up here with guys that are shooting the puck, putting the biscuit in the basket, and doing a good job at it. I run down here the defensive pairings, and I'm looking, okay, there's a goal for Chara, not a lot of shots, not a lot of volume, no power play points. Same here. Krug at least has some shots and some blocks, but it's nothing too exciting. He just happens to be anchoring these dudes on the top power play. DeBrusk isn't doing much, but Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak are. And Krug happens to be the defenseman on the power play line, and he's, decent price. He might get in there and get a couple of points. 5 power play points tells you they're cheap points with bonuses. Power play 2 is just trash right now. So all of your offense is consolidated right there on that top line and maybe Krug. And then I would look maybe at Tampa Bay for similar situations because Tampa Bay 1, Tampa Bay 2, maybe Hedman or Shattenkirk. I don't know that I'd run a defenseman with these guys. I would like to run a lot of 3-3-2s, 3-2-2s, and stuff like that in opportunities like tonight and hope I hit all 3 offenses. If I do, I'm in line to smash cash games and probably get deep into tournaments. I don't know that I'd run a big 5x2 or 4x3 type of stack tonight. It might end up working, but you've really got to hit it hard. All right, that ought to just about do it for today. I'll go back and show you the Tampa Bay stuff here really, really quickly just to show you how you can use, again, these lines to show the production up here up top. It's all up here on this first line. Second line's producing a little, not as well. Third and fourth line are kind of trash right now. So this is where all of your skaters should be coming out of. Now, if you wanted to stack them, you can stack 1, 2, 3, and maybe run, have Johnson or something like that. What you'd want to see is, are they correlating on the power play? Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, and Maroon. This is not. That's why this power play isn't producing that well. You've got a couple of these guys that are producing, then a couple of chumps. Hedman's not paying off his price right now. I'd avoid him. I'd look down here. Tyler Johnson. Too bad he's not on the power play 1. Shattenkirk is anchoring that power play and puts some shots on goal. He's a little overpriced right now in my opinion. But that said, these are the places that I would go for these games that are going to supposedly do the scoring tonight. I would lean on that. I would rely on that. I would play these guys mostly up here in cash games, maybe dip down into here for some cash games. And then my tournaments, pretty much anything, but I wouldn't take Dallas in a tournament. Low odds of it going off. New York, Ottawa, low odds of them going off. I'd still stick to these guys, realizing that ownership isn't going to kill me. So if ownership isn't going to kill me, I'd stick with the odds. I'd play the odds in a sport like hockey and just know that it's a very volatile sport. And some nights it's going to work and most nights it's not. That's just hockey. You just hope that when it does work, you're in a high enough upside contest that it gets paid and it pays back all of those days that you missed. If you can sit there and tread water, tread water, tread water, tread water, maybe grind up a little bit of bankroll, maybe slightly lose a little bit of bankroll, and just grind, 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 and wait for that big night. Hockey's the kind of sport that will pay off. It will present that big night to you at some point, and that night hopefully does the damage to make up for all of those nights that you were treading water. All right, guys, this has been Chop It On, very, very simply stated. DFSArmy.com, coupon code CHOP, CHOP. Trigger that 20% off discount. Get in here today for NFL. NBA's coming on Tuesday, and we will see you guys on the inside.